There is a specific, quiet category of loneliness that rarely finds a name in our daily conversations. It is not the loneliness of the outcast standing behind a locked gate. It is not the loneliness of the exile banished from the tribe. In this version, the door is open. You are explicitly invited. Your name is on the guest list. And yet, despite being inside the room, you carry an unshakable feeling that you are occupying the extra chair, the one dragged over at the last minute, the one that doesn't quite match the rest of the set. You are there when the group convenes. You laugh on cue. You contribute to the conversation with warmth and intelligence. You put in the effort to show up. To an outside observer, your social life looks robust. No one would ever describe you as isolated. But internally, you are haunted by a subtle, terrifying awareness. If you hadn't shown up, the evening would have proceeded exactly the same way. If you went silent, the rhythm of the chatter wouldn't break. If you slowly drifted away, there would be no sudden realization, no one stopping to ask, wait, we can't continue without them. This isn't the sharp, hot pain of rejection. It is something far more confusing. It is the dull ache of being present without being essential. It is the state of being included but not chosen. You are known by many, but held in mind by very few. And perhaps the most maddening part is that you cannot identify a crime scene. There was no betrayal, no fight, no specific moment where the bond snapped. There is just a steady accumulating evidence that while your seat at the table exists, it was never really reserved for you. We call this experience the floater friend. It is the role of someone who drifts effortlessly between social circles, liked by everyone, yet deeply anchored to no one. To understand why this happens and how to move from being a pleasant guest to a permanent fixture, we have to dismantle the psychology behind this invisible role. The anatomy of floating. The life of a floater friend is rarely dramatic. You don't experience doors slamming in your face. Instead, you experience a death by 1,000 cuts. Tiny, almost imperceptible moments of non-priority. It's walking into a circle of friends and realizing a story is halfway done, and nobody pauses to catch you up. You smile and nod, piecing together the context clues, perpetually half a step behind the rhythm of the group. It is laughing at an inside joke that predates you, not because you find it funny, but because asking for an explanation feels like too much friction. It is the digital silence of the group chat where you are a member, yet when a personal crisis hits on a Tuesday night, you scroll through the list of names and realize you cannot tap a single one. Not because these people are cruel, but because you intuitively sense that you do not hold enough equity in their lives to interrupt their evening. You are there for the happy hours, but not the heavy hours. You leave these gatherings with a hollowness that is difficult to justify. Nothing bad happened. Everyone was nice. You were included. So the doubt turns inward. You begin to gaslight yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Am I ungrateful? But the gut knows the difference between being welcomed and being needed. It knows the difference between being a part of the scenery and being a part of the foundation. The misunderstanding. Skill disguised as struggle. A common misconception is that floater friends are socially awkward, insecure, or lack confidence. The reality is usually the exact opposite. Floater friends are often the most socially skilled people in the room. They possess a hyper-vigilant ability to read a social dynamic within seconds. They can sense when the energy in a room shifts, when a topic is making someone uncomfortable, or when a silence is lasting too long. They are the diplomats, the translators, and the emotional glue. They instinctively adjust their personality to smooth over rough edges. They know exactly when to speak up, when to self-deprecate to lower the tension, and when to fade into the background to let someone else shine. But this social awareness doesn't stem from a place of ease. It stems from a place of attentiveness. The floater friend is constantly working. They are managing the comfort of others while strictly minimizing their own footprint. They are adaptable, flexible, and low maintenance. And this is where the tragedy begins. Because you are so good at adapting, you become fluid. You fit into whatever container is available. You move where there is room. Over time, you become water rather than rock. Most people do not realize the caloric expense of this behavior. Constantly calibrating yourself to the needs of a room requires immense energy. It means monitoring how your words land, ensuring you aren't taking up too much space, and managing the emotional temperature of the group. Because you do this so seamlessly, your presence becomes replaceable. You have trained those around you to enjoy your company without ever feeling the need to hold on to it tight. You have made yourself an easy friend, and in doing so you have inadvertently made yourself an optional one. The origins of the pattern. This behavior is rarely a conscious choice. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to live on the periphery of intimacy. The roots of the floater friend role usually stretch back to earlier chapters of life, to environments where belonging felt conditional or uncertain. For many, this pattern was birthing in a childhood where emotional safety wasn't guaranteed. This doesn't always mean overt abuse or trauma. Often it stems from inconsistency. Perhaps affection depended on a parent's fluctuating mood. Perhaps attention was sporadic. Perhaps you grew up in a chaotic environment where being easy, agreeable, and self-sufficient was the safest way to avoid conflict. In those environments, your nervous system learned a powerful lesson. Connection is something you must maintain, not something you can simply claim. You learned to watch before you leaped. You learned to assess what the other person needed before you dared to express what you wanted. You prioritized harmony over authenticity. Being liked became a survival strategy. Being known felt risky. If you are low maintenance, you are less likely to be rejected. If you are flexible, you are less likely to be abandoned. The tragedy is that the survival mechanisms of the child become the social strategies of the adult. You may no longer be in that unsafe environment, but your operating system is still running the same code. You are still adapting, still adjusting, still floating. Not because you don't deserve a seat at the table, but because you learned long ago that the only way to keep the seat was to never make a fuss about sitting in it. The paradox of flexibility. Here lies the central paradox of the floater friend, a truth that is hard to swallow but essential to understand. The more flexible you become, the less clearly you are chosen. When you shapeshift to fit every dynamic, when you never ask the group to adjust around you, you stop creating friction. But in social physics, without friction, there is no traction. You stop creating gravity. There is nothing for others to orbit around. Belonging relies on object permanence. It requires you to occupy space in a way that is consistent and recognizable. When someone knows exactly where you stand, what you will tolerate, and what you need, they can form an attachment to you. But floater friends are often so accommodating that they become invisible. They don't disrupt plans. They don't have strong, conflicting preferences. They are the person everyone is happy to see, but no one would rearrange their schedule for. This is not a failure of your character, it is a structural failure of your strategy. By being endlessly accommodating, you deny others the opportunity to accommodate you. You deny them the chance to learn your shape. Your absence doesn't create a hole in the group. It just creates a little more space. The system keeps moving because nothing in the dynamic signals that a load-bearing wall has been removed. You haven't made yourself too much, you've made yourself too easy to replace. The internal cost. The most difficult aspect of this role isn't what happens socially, but what decays internally. When you spend years being included but not chosen, the damage is silent. There is no one to get angry at. You can't scream at your friends for being nice. So, the cost manifests as exhaustion. You begin to dread social events, feeling tired before you've even put on your shoes. This isn't because you are antisocial, it's because performing adaptability is draining work. You are constantly regulating yourself, checking the mirror, ensuring you aren't too much. Over time, this erodes your sense of self. You get so used to deferring to the group's preferences that you lose touch with your own. You stop expecting to be prioritized. You stop believing that your specific presence matters. You begin to view yourself as a supporting character in the movie of your own life, there to advance the plot for others, but never the focus of the scene. Why standard advice fails? When people express feelings of invisibility, the world rushes in with standard self-help advice. Set boundaries, say no, cut people off. For the floater friend, this advice is often useless, if not counterproductive. The problem is not that you lack boundaries, it's that boundaries alone do not cure invisibility. You can say no to every invitation, and you will simply become a floater friend who stays home. The issue isn't about access, it is about positioning. Floater friends don't overgive because they lack self-respect. They overgive because they are terrified that if they stop, the connection will snap. Setting a boundary feels like risking the only tether they have. Furthermore, boundaries are about keeping things out. The floater friend's deepest desire is to let people in. The solution isn't to become colder, harsher, or more guarded. The goal is not to build walls. The goal is to build weight. The shift from floating to landing, belonging doesn't come from proximity. It doesn't come from being on the email chain. It comes from being felt. To be felt You must be willing to occupy space. You must be willing to be heavy. This shift is subtle. It doesn't require a dramatic confrontation or a manifesto. It begins with a quiet internal decision to stop adjusting first. It looks like this. A silence falls over the conversation. Your instinct screams to fill it, to make everyone comfortable, to crack a joke. Instead, you wait. You let the silence sit. You let someone else carry the weight of the moment. It looks like expressing a preference that might be inconvenient. Actually, I don't want to go to that bar. I'd prefer this one. It is the terrifying act of introducing a tiny amount of friction. This feels dangerous. Your internal alarm system will ring. It will tell you that if you are difficult, you will be discarded. And here is the hard truth. Some people might drift away. When you stop floating and start landing, you will discover that some of your connections were built entirely on your flexibility. When you stop bending, those connections will break. This is painful, but it is necessary. You are filtering out the relationships that only existed because you made them easy. Redefining belonging. As you stop performing adaptability, your social circle will likely shrink. The frantic energy of trying to be everywhere will fade. This can feel like a loss. You might see fewer invitations. You might have quieter weekends. But in this newfound space, clarity emerges. You begin to distinguish between being liked and being known. You realize that true belonging isn't about how many groups you can float between. It's about whether your presence changes the texture of the room. Deeper connections require resonance, not just attendance. They require the other person to feel your edges, your opinions, your distinctiveness. By becoming consistent rather than flexible, you allow people to actually find you. You allow them to hold on to something solid. The transition from floater to anchor is a move from quantity to quality. It is the realization that one or two relationships where you are truly held in mind, where your absence is felt as a loss, are worth infinitely more than 100 superficial connections where you are a pleasant, replaceable extra. If you recognize yourself in the description of the floater friend, know that there is nothing broken within you. You were not failing at friendship. You were succeeding at a survival strategy that kept you safe and connected when you needed it most. Your adaptability is a skill, a testament to your empathy and awareness. But you are outgrowing the role. You are ready to trade the safety of being easy for the risk and the reward of being real. The path forward is slow. It happens in the pauses. It happens every time you choose to show up as your full, unedited self, rather than the version you think the room wants. It happens when you stop earning your place at the table and simply sit in the chair, knowing that you have the right to occupy it. You are done floating. It is time to land.